As we know, every little girl dreams of her perfect wedding. Ever since she hears her first fairy tale and hears about Prince Charming decides she wants to get married, she starts planning her own perfect wedding. With the onset of Pinterest.com, my own wife has done this very same thing, and she planned the perfect wedding before we got married. Everybody tells stories about the worst wedding they've ever been to, or the train wreck of a wedding. I like to think that that's the wedding my parents describe when they tell people about our wedding. As far as my wedding goes, it was just terrible. Despite my wife's best interests, so many things went wrong. A lot of them were probably my fault. I'll leave that up to you. The biggest problem by far was the weather that we had. But after that, the food situation was really screwed up. And then, of course, not enough food, too much booze. People got drunk, including my best man, who then toasted me. Yes. The weather leading up to the wedding, for starters, I've never seen every forecast ever say that there is a 100% chance of rain. Not just for my wedding day, but for my wedding day and the entire week afterwards. Just downpour. Not really a torrential thunderstorm, but rain constantly, non-stop for about a week. The week we married, which was a huge problem for us because we decided to have it at her father's house in his backyard in a tent. And it rained so much that the tent actually flooded underneath us. The water was running towards the street, and there was like a swimming pool in our tent. It's pretty awful, but on top of that, the wetness, as well as the fact that it was about 50 degrees in July, just kind of boils down to just an awful day for a wedding. But we had a wedding anyways. Having the wedding in her father's backyard was very important to us, trying to save money, and on that note, we're also trying to save money on food. So we had everybody in our family sort of pitch in and make a whole bunch of food, but with the weather, the grill that we had rented had to be underneath a tiny little tent, because we couldn't put it in the big tent, otherwise everybody would suffocate, so we pulled this tiny little pop-up 10 by 10 awning, and we grilled underneath it, but the grill was actually too big for the awning, so we only had to grill a little bit at a time. The guests were so hungry and cold and miserable, most likely. Somebody broke into the food, I guess. The wife and I turned our backs, and then we came back and everybody was eating. It was problematic. Along with the food, there was the booze, like I said. There's nothing wrong with booze. We love booze. We got about 24 bottles of wine for all our guests and a few cases of beer. The problem was, without any food and only booze, everybody got a little plastered a little too quickly. So by the time toast time came around, the biggest offender would be my best man, David. He did me a tremendous favor. Drove all the way from Cedar Rapids, about a day and a half on a Greyhound bus, which is just awful. And then he showed up, came to the ceremony, and just drank. We'll say he drank. After that, he went up, toasted us. It was very sweet of him, but he slurred his words, and he was holding a beer. Cute kid, but unfortunately, my wife will hound me forever about my best man who got drunk at my wedding. But the reason I decided to tell you about this day is a very important part of my life. I like to consider my wedding being the start of my modern era, I suppose. When I say now, I refer to now as since June 2nd, when I got married. And one of the greatest things about my wedding, despite everything that went wrong, it was still beautiful. It was absolutely wonderful. In the words of our notary public who was there, she opened with the phrase, "It may be cold and wet outside, but there is plenty of love and warmth in here." And it was very fitting. This was easily, without a doubt, the best, worst day of my life.